I talk with an absolute legend today, John McEuen, formerly of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, about a bunch of projects he's got going on today on the Music Universe podcast.
Hey Matt, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, sleepyhead?
Hey, the hours have been really weird lately, dealing with some back end stuff for us and just not getting a good night's rest. So unfortunately I had to sit this one out. But you know, you can take the reins just fine. I don't have any issues or worry about that. And sometimes honestly, and you'll vouch for this in some on some occasions, it is better one-on-one rather than
Right,
two-on-one.
exactly. We have some artists that we know are just better one to one than trying to listen to two people coming through their computer. So,
And plus, sometimes we talk over each other. I mean, it's bound to happen, and it's just easier if one of us is doing it than both.
no, that's true. That's true. So, John McEuen, one of the original founders of Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. He has an album out called The Newsman. It's a completely spoken word album with music behind it. And I listened to literally the first two tracks before he hopped on, and I love it. It is so
Yeah.
totally engrossing. And his voice, I don't know that you've ever heard him talk, but his voice is perfect for storytelling. He's a wonderful storyteller. And as a companion, sort of, for the album, he has a new children's book called The Mountain Whippoorwill, based off of a public domain story that somebody got in touch with him and said, "Do you want to do this? I'd like to illustrate it." And so we talked about that. We talked about his work with Steve Martin. We talked about Disneyland and even his time as a magician before the Dirt Band took off. It was a really, really interesting conversation.
Well, back in April, we actually premiered "Killed at the Ford." Do you remember that song?
Yes, I do.
And the album dropped the next day. Unfortunately, he fell ill a little bit, and we did have to postpone the interview. Otherwise, we would have had him already. But looking forward to listening to this myself. Let's just get to it. John McEuen on the Music Universe.
John McEuen, welcome to the Music Universe. How are you, sir?
Hey, thank you. Good to be here.
Oh, it's good to have you. I want to talk first. You've got so much going on. I want to talk first about the Newsman. I was
Great.
listening to it this morning, the spoken word album, and even just on the first track, I have so many questions. I'll probably start with one you've been getting asked a lot. Who is the Newsman? Who is there a particular person in your life that you had in mind
That
when you
story is all true. The
Mhm.
story that I tell there on the first cut about the newsman was a crippled guy that drove around on his motorcycle, his little motor scooter that was loaded with newspapers. He could walk, kind of. He could talk, kind of. He could, anyway, and he sold a lot of newspapers to everybody in Hollywood because he'd go to the main agencies and record companies as well as a couple of restaurants where everybody hung out. And he was, I don't know why I thought I ought to what do I call my album? Oh, hey, I could use the newsman story. I'll put music to that. Yeah, that'd be good. And oh, okay, I'll do that. you know, and this he he showed up in my life in 1967, and I wrote this piece. He was there around a couple of years, and I wrote the piece about him, about 10 years ago.
It's really cool. How did you choose what music to put under the stories in the album?
Well, that's the fun part of doing your own projects.
Yeah.
I picked what I liked,
Yeah.
and sometimes I picked it. I mean, played it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I used an existing piece of music that had already been written and reworked it around, like "Killed at the Ford," the Henry Wadsworth Longfellow with has the music of Vacant Chair behind it. The poem was written in 1868, and Vacant Share was written in 1865.
Hmm.
And I just had to rework it a little bit to make it wrap around that poem. And it was great. I think, I mean, I think it came out great.
Right. No, it's such an engrossing album. What made you want to do this format, a spoken word album versus a memoir versus an audiobook? Why a spoken word album? It's really engrossing and I love it.
You do?
Yeah,
Oh, good.
yes.
Thank you. Because I don't know what to call it. It's not rap. It's not, but who knows? Spoken word has been around a long time.
Mhm.
1948, Hank Williams Sr. cut Fly Trouble. Do you ever sit straight up in bed with something circling around your head? You spot it as it whizzes by, and just one pesky little fly. You, it takes you to a silly place,
Mhm.
and then uh, Nui Ba was written by a guy that was at that battle in 1968, and the music for that. I worked. I had some music that I was going to use for. It was like war music, you know, and
Mhm.
I thought that's going to be perfect. It took me 8 years to get that one done.
Oh
I
wow.
mean, I tried one type of music, I tried another, and then I tried this, and it worked. But for Old Rivers, for instance, I recorded that as a basic track and then did a couple of little overdubs. Did that last November, and I knocked it out in 4 hours. I
Oh
was
wow.
really proud of myself. And the music just came from different places. That one was just showed up when I started narrating the poem or saying it or doing it, the story. And what are Pineapple John? That was John Carter Cash had written this poem about Pineapple John. And I thought, well, that needs a guitar. I'll just play the guitar and talk. Yeah, that'll work, you know. And I did, and it worked. It seemed to make sense.
I love it. I love hearing the stories behind it. It's a
Oh,
really great, unique album. And like I said, I'm one or two tracks in because I've been very busy, but I'm already engrossed in the whole thing. It's really
oh,
wonderful.
you haven't heard the cremation of Sam McGee yet.
Not yet.
Ah, good. Listen with good speakers or headphones, please.
I will.
I
Well,
use a
yeah,
lot. I use a lot of sound effects
yeah.
and mixing tricks to, when you mix, you have a stereo picture, right, left. Let's see, is that right, left to you, or is that left, right?
Yeah.
And- but if you're cautious or figure out some EQ and different things, you can make an instrument sound like it's behind another instrument, standing behind the guy, or you can make it sound like it's coming from over there or over there. And that's fun to work at doing.
Yeah. It's I like that an audio picture using headphones. It's we
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story. There's a Windmill Lane in Ireland. They do the same thing at the end of their tour, the end of their studio tour. It's the studio where Def Leppard and U2 recorded. You put on these noise canceling headphones, and it's the same thing. It sounds you're in the studio, and it sounds like somebody's walking up behind you, but it's all in the headphones. That's a
Uh-huh.
really neat trick to be able to do in editing,
Uh-huh.
mixing. Want to move on and talk about this book, The Old Man and the Whippoorwill. That's another sort of classic story, 1925, I believe I was reading. Oh, yes,
1928. Stephen Vincent Benet
yes,
went to a town in Georgia and was inspired to write The Mountain Whippoorwill.
the Mountain Whippoorwill. Yes.
Oh.
Tell me
And,
about, yes,
pardon?
go ahead. Tell me about your decision to publish that.
I could. All I had to do was get it done.
Yes.
And you get it in it's public domain, so it was no problem. And a
Oh
guy
yeah.
wanted to a guy wanted to write the illustrations that go along with it.
Hmm.
And as you can see, it
There
has
we
various
go.
illustrations, and this poem, this one is on the album
Oh, cool.
too. It's on the Newsman album. And if you buy the album, you can buy this book and read the poem to your kids.
Love that. That's really cool. How did you connect with the illustrator?
My daughter, my
Oh.
daughter used to work for Mellow Mushroom,
Mhm.
and a guy that did the artwork for the Mellow Mushroom. Do you have a Mellow Mushroom there?
No, I don't.
It's a pizza place. There's about 75 of them around the country.
Oh, I see.
Anyway, he designed all the artwork. So this is like having an R. Crumb kind of guy do saying, "Hey, can I do artwork for that?" And I said, "Sure." Anyway, uh, he put it together, and it was really. We took a couple years with it, and I had sat around waiting for the right time. And I think with this album out, usually you don't find people releasing two things kind of simultaneously.
Right.
But this is a book, and it's from the album, and I think they connect.
Yeah.
And why not give it a shot?
Are you
Say
going to?
what spurred me on to do that was Taylor Swift.
Really?
Well, yeah, she's got eight things in the
Yeah.
top, you know, eight. Count them, and it's okay. Oh, Taylor can do it, and it's been done before. And the talking music has been quite popular over the years.
Hmm.
Arlo Guthrie, Alice's Restaurant, uh, Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Yeah.
That was all talking. King Tut. That was
Yes.
that. By the way, that was the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band that played the music on King Tut.
Yes.
We did that in 1977.
Is that the relationship that led you to producing one of Steve Martin's records? Is that?
No, I met Steve before either one of us played music. I met him at 16 years old. We were both trying to get a job in Disneyland, and we did at the magic shop. We were trying to get a job at the magic shop,
Oh, wow.
and we did. We demonstrated tricks all day for 3 years, and it was a magical time. Oh, saw Walt Disney three times. That
It's awesome. It had to
news
be
was
special.
spread. Disney's in the park. Disney's in the park. And that was very special. Watching the marching band go by every day at 5 o'clock and take the flag down. And it was, the cusp of the beginning of the Vietnam War, which we didn't hear very much about.
Hmm.
But it was a it was a magic time for sure. And then about a year and a half into that job, I got a banjo, and Steve liked the banjo, and He started playing. I started playing. I could learn faster than him, so I learned something and show it to him. And he credits me with being his banjo instructor. Thank you, Steve. But that led to my brother managing him. I got Bill, come listen to Steve. He's really funny. He needs help too. He needs a manager. And he'd been managing the Dirt Band about 4 or 5 years, and he went and started managing him, started recording him. He recorded his 4 albums. I recorded his fifth one.
That's
I
amazing.
won the Grammy.
Yes.
Bill, there you go. Yeah. Anyway,
Friendly competition, brotherly competition.
it was fun.
No, that's awesome. I got to ask because as a magician myself, before the dirt,
Magician?
yes, yes. magician with an A, not musician, but as a
Double lift.
magician myself, with you working in the magic shop at Disneyland, were you before the Dirt Band, before music took off for you? Were you a performing magician doing birthday parties and the like, or was it just the job at Disneyland?
I have windows in my fingers, you know what they say, windows,
Yes.
fingers don't go together. I needed to gain weight. So I couldn't palm anything with behind my fingers. I'd have to close them up. And yes, I was a working musician in that. I did about 10 shows,
Oh wow.
$20.
Neat.
$20, I'll do a show for you. That
Yeah.
was a lot of money then. And, Boy Scouts and birthday party and a couple of things like that. But I didn't think I could get good enough to be because I'd run into some magicians.
Right.
I, I'd seen him, Leo Banky. My God, he was great. And a, a couple of the guys out there. But music, that was different.
Yeah.
I took to music and kept, let's see, roughing fluid, double lift.
Hmm.
See, yeah, okay, yeah,
Yep.
you do magic, okay.
Yes. Yes. Roughing flu. Roughing flu. You got to use an N95 when you're working with that. That stuff stinks.
Well, I put roughing. I did some making of things for a magician named Aldini.
Yes.
Aldini, Alex White. Yes, you know that name?
Yes, I know the name.
I worked for Aldini and
Oh, very cool.
I made Coke bottle tricks for him and put roughing fluid on cards and stuff. And he sold them through the mail.
That's amazing. Your history just touches on so much of entertainment. I think music, magic, comedy with Steve Martin and your brother working with him. There's so much more to John McEuen than the Dirt Band, even though that's the big legacy, and they're wrapping it up this year. I mean, when you look back at your career, what are you the most proud of?
Will the circle be unbroken?
Yeah.
The album that I put together with my brother Bill by asking Earl Scruggs if he'd record with Earl. Would you? What is it, John? I just wondered if you would you want to record with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band? I was very scared of a no answer, and he said, "I'd be proud to." And I almost fell out of the car. I was taking him back to the hotel after a gig in Boulder, Colorado. And the next night, Doc Watson was playing there. And I got up my nerve a little more. Merle Watson introduced us and, uh, hi, Doc. Yes, I'm part of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and we're making an album with Earl Scruggs. We weren't making an album. We were, in fact, the other guys didn't even know. I asked Earl, and they didn't know I was talking to Doc either. And then I told Bill, and he says, I'm going to call Merle Travis on Monday. And he called back on Monday and said, Merle's in. Then I called Earl and said, hey, Earl, do you think you could maybe get Maybelle Carter on this record? He called the next day, Maybelle's land. Maybe I'll be glad to do it. You know, it just built. And 8 weeks after I asked Earl Scruggs if he'd record with us, we 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 started recording. And 5 days later, we had finished 38 songs.
That's amazing. That
There
is
it is, right
amazing.
there,
Yes.
the album.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to point it out. There we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. That's amazing. You have had such an amazing career and you keep going. Are you touring this summer, this fall? Where can people find you live with your solo dates?
Try my website for the calendar,
Sure.
johnmcEwen.net or .com.
Yep.
And that is also, I just opened this a web store there where you can get things like my book, The Life I've Picked, which is one I wrote a couple years ago about this life I picked. And you can get this book, which features my brother's photographs from the Circle album and the story of how that record was made. And it's like the dark side of the moon of bluegrass. It's, people love hearing about it. They like seeing the pictures uh, larger and such. And I tell a story behind each picture. Each photograph has a unique story that here's a nice man. That's Merle Travis
That's
picking his
awesome.
guitar. He was grinning while he was doing that, you know? He was the only
Picking and
one
grinning.
who was warming up. And anyway, that book's available signed, by the way, if you get it from my website. In fact, I got to sign a box of them. Anyway, um,
That's
so,
wonderful. John McEuen, I wish you all the success with all these projects on the road. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. Thank you. This was a pleasure.
well, I appreciate you wanting to do it. I very much appreciate the attention the newsman is getting. As far as
Yeah.
an album, it was a real. I'm going to put some songs on here, and I couldn't. A singing song would get buried by all these other things. So they're so
Yeah.
much better. And besides, if I sang it, it wouldn't be much anyway. But I'm not a singer. I've proven that. But I can sing a few songs. But it's I like to tell stories. I've been doing the whippoorwill since 1970, 70 or so.
Oh,
Did
wow.
it did it with the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band when we would go out and we'd like to put a break in the middle of the show. I do the whippoorwill. I did it for about, oh man, 30 years.
Wow.
30 years. And the band we did 50 years. Wow. Anyway,
Amazing.
I'm out on my own and I take Les Thompson, the original Dirt Band bass player,
Yes,
with me, and we have a blast.
that's awesome. Well, thank you, John. This was fantastic. And again, that's The Newsman. Really interesting story, true story, as you heard John tell. And then, of course, there's the Mountain Whippoorwill, which, as he said in the interview, he's been telling on stage since the 70s with the Dirt Band. So it's really cool. Really, really
Yeah.
cool. And most people struggle when you say, of all the things that you could be most proud of in your career, what is it? He had an answer in his mind. There is a top moment there with the Will the Circle Be Unbroken record that he talks about that I
Hmm.
know as we're recording this, buddy, you haven't heard, so I won't
Right.
spoil that for you, but it was really special to listen to. This man has had his finger in every facet of the entertainment industry, and it was really, really cool to talk to him.
Yeah. The very, very cool. And we actually saw, or I should say, I saw the Dirt Band, minus McEwen, of course, last year in New Orleans, of all places, with Garth and Lainey Wilson, and really good. I was glad I finally got to see them. Obviously, Fishing in the Dark has been a staple on the radio since the 80s, and it was really good to see that perform live. So looking forward to John as he resumes touring as well this summer and everything else he's got going.
Yeah, I'll do you one better. I met Jeff Hanna out by the bus.
You did, yes, you did. At a local show for you.
And I've actually interviewed John very briefly in person at a Country for a Cause. So the
Yeah,
Dirt
it's
Band are
true.
just great guys. They're packing it in. Um, I'm waiting for the news. We're all hoping that, as a fan, that John will get the calls. Hey, come on out and play on the last few of our shows. And I get the sense that he's proud of all of it, and maybe he would join them. Maybe he would join them. Don't know. Didn't talk about that in the interview, but
Yeah,
certainly an important chapter in his life is coming to a close, and he's got all these wonderful projects going on. So
Great.
lots coming from him. For the Music Universe podcast, I'm Matt.
And I'm Buddy. Thanks for listening and watching. Be sure to hit like, subscribe, and share on all the socials at The Music Uni. And of course, check us out for the latest news and concert reviews and more at themusicuniverse.com. Take care.